Welcome back. Get ready to turn on dark mode, where we treat video games, tech, and media like it's our 9 to 5. I'm your host, Taylor Floyd Muse, and with the absence of our co host, Keegan Lassard, that man and his wife might be having a baby right now. Really close to the due date, so he kind of has to be ready to go to the hospital at a moment's notice. So we're tackling it solo this week, with the help of Gibbs, of course. How's it going, Gibbs? Oh, you want to be on the show? Yeah, sure. Come on, go take a spot. Oh, he's kidding. Got me. Well, BlizzCon happened this weekend, and there's a lot of games that Blizzard has. They got World of Warcraft, Diablo, Hearthstone. Keegan and I forget about Hearthstone. We don't play it. And of course, Overwatch. And really, we only care about Overwatch and Diablo between the two of us. World of Warcraft, Keegan plays intermittently, but he doesn't really keep up with the latest expansions. So today we'll be talking about Diablo 4 and Diablo 2 Remastered, or they called it Resurrected, and a little bit of Overwatch 2, which it's a little bit better than we previously thought. So excited for that one. But first, we're going to dive straight into Diablo 4, which Keegan and I are pretty excited about. I have never really been a long-time Diablo fan. I didn't play the first or the second one, they were before my time. I played 3 very late, only a couple of years ago after it was re released to the Switch. They were many classes deep, they added new DLC, blah, blah, blah. I kind of just blew through that game once it was on sale just to see what it was like. And it was enjoyable. But now that I think I can get in on a game once it's fresh, going right from the gun with friends, I think it's going to be a lot more enjoyable than Diablo 3 was originally. Now, Diablo always has pretty good cutscenes. I mean, Blizzard in general usually makes pretty good animation. Like it's very entertaining. This one for Diablo 4's rogue reveal was it caught me off guard. Like I didn't really know that ear collection was a thing in the original couple of games. So when this woman just starts putting ears on the pew, I'm kind of like, okay, this is a little odd. But we adjusted, and I mean, I guess that's just a game mechanic, and I'll have to get used to that. But it was entertaining seeing them reveal what was going on there, and I think the rogue was going to be a pretty fun class. And Keegan and I might actually be like fighting over which one gets to play rogue. I'm if I don't get rogue, I'll probably go sorceress because in Diablo 3 I played the wizard, which is a successor to the sorceress apparently, and I really enjoyed that and being able to just like attack from range and be fast as well. So it's going to be interesting to see who gets what. So because I'm not a Diablo Ovid fan, I wasn't aware that the rogue was an original class, but it is cool to see it make a reappearance, and I mean, I'm definitely into it as an option. She looks like she's very mobile, very agile. She can zip around the map doing really cool flips, jumps, arrow attacks and everything. She's got like shadow step abilities to teleport. Lots of fun looks like it could be had there. Keegan gave me some notes as well. He texted me, and to be honest, the only thing he could say about Diablo was he was bothered by the hairline of the president. So interesting choice. I think he's already excited. I think that's kind of a given. He's a longtime Diablo fan. He's played since he was I don't know what age, but a small child, and Diablo 2 was really close to home for him, so he's really pumped about the fact that Diablo 2 Resurrected is coming. And to be honest, I'll probably hop on that with him as well because I mean, remastered, it looks like a lot of fun. He also says he wants that Diablo polo, and he's a big fan of polo, so having a Diablo polo would be ideal for him. Oftentimes, Keegan and I have said that Blizzard is the Pixar of the film industry or the game industry. I mean, I say film because it's almost like some of these animations are just like they could be straight up films. He does say that the Diablo team, though, is basically like they grew up and then started taking drugs and listening to death metal because they're a little bit on the dark side as opposed to their Overwatch things, which are very lighthearted and more like Pixar. It also looks like there's a lot more character customization this time around. Like you can actually change the way that your character themselves looks underneath all the armor that you end up putting on. And you can change like the appearance of the clothing as well. So I'm not too sure how this is going to tie into the gear you get, if there's cosmetic changes that show up above armor like some games do, but they did show people changing tattoos, the hairstyle, the eye color, things like that. So that'll be more fun to mess around with. As far as my time with Diablo 3 goes, I don't really remember too much of the very detailed things like if weapons were different based on regions and armor types. I never really grinded it hard beyond just beating the main campaign. So them talking about in Diablo 4 there being variations of weapons based on what region you get them from, I think that's pretty cool. Like, okay, you might have gotten a great sword here, but if you get it in a different region, like it looks completely different. So there's going to be more cosmetic things to chase that way, on top of the fact that your gear, like the values of stats will matter as well. So they then proceeded to show some pretty sick dismount action from the horse. Like they had the rogue run up on these people, hop off, throw arrows from the air, have it rain down, and I don't even remember like I just got off the horse in the last game. I don't really remember what else happened. There was like some animation. So this is pretty cool to see. The animation team had a good time doing more like verticality in the animations as well, or the gameplay, as well as like actual environments. They showed that you can actually scale walls, you can jump across cliffs. Like there's a lot more that you can do in this, and I feel like that'll make the exploration a lot more entertaining because let's be honest, I don't even remember any of the environments in Diablo 3. They kind of all blend together when you're just like mashing buttons and the game is just kind of like clustering around you. They did proceed to show a lot of like really cool cinematic gameplay like they do in a lot of different games, but in a game like this with the top-down mess, it usually ends up looking like this, looking like a mess. Like you're just running around with a bunch of enemies clustering around you, explosions everywhere. And I think that Girlfriend Reviews actually coined it really well. Diarrhea Christmas lights, because that's what it ends up looking like, just a mess of lights everywhere. Yeah. There's different mounts you can collect in this game. They mentioned that the game is more open world this time with the challenges. There's more naturally occurring things that go on. It's not so much just go here, do this, go here, do that. You can happen across camps where they'll have activities for you to do. You take over the camp. Now you got a new place for checkpoint, and that's more in line with other open world games. I guess I'm not too used to having a top-down like isometric RPG like this that has those kinds of open world mechanics that you would see in maybe like a Horizon Zero Dawn or a Far Cry. So it should be pretty fun to kind of do this exploration outside of the main quest and have like things that aren't just a hard storyline quest. They then talked about PvP, and I don't even know if the PvP was a thing in the previous games. I'm honestly such a bad Diablo fan. But anyway, they had PvP added to this game, and it sounds like it's going to be pretty divisive. There's there's mechanics in this game that I hear people don't necessarily care for from other games, like bounty systems. As you kill more players, you might start getting a bounty on your head, and people can come over and kill you for that reward, or if you survive it, you get your bonuses. And this just reminds me of like Grand Theft Auto and other games like that. And I don't really know if I would enjoy that aspect of PvP so much. They do have zones that are very reminiscent of the dark zones in the Division, where as you collect gear, you have to go to almost like an extraction point and like refine the artifacts that you get. And your artifacts are fair game for anybody that comes and attacks you and takes it. So you have to survive your way out, and it sounds very reminiscent of the dark zones in Division 2. So those are two pretty controversial aspects, I feel, in PvP games, but I could be wrong in the sense that in one of these top-down strategy games that people would want that more so than just like a head-to-head fight like you would in like a Call of Duty or even World of Warcraft, because they have, head-on-head head-to-head fights. Unfortunately, they did not give us a release date, but earlier this year they did say that they're not going to shoot for this year at all. So, given the fact that Diablo 2 Resurrected comes out this year, we'll have something to tide us over until 2022, which is when most people believe this game will eventually come out. Diablo 2 Resurrected, though, looks like it'll be a good time. I mean, without having played the first one, I can't tie into that nostalgia, but it does look like fun. And they did say that they even have a classic mode where you can relive it with the old graphics, which I think is really cool because I mean, I'm enjoying doing that in the Halo series with our Master Chief collection, and they did it with StarCraft as well, their classic version. So I think it's the right move there. They then proceeded to say technical alpha coming soon. Um, this threw Keegan off and me as well because aren't all alphas really like technical alphas? They're just a showcase of what the tech can do, and it's basically just like try the game out, break it, and we'll see what happens. Um, yeah, that's coming out later this year for PC. They didn't give a date yet, but we'll be able to technically alpha it later. So should be fun. But what I think is going to be even more fun, Overwatch 2. Man, it seems like people had a complete change of heart on this game. I watched the original reveal of Overwatch 2, and in chat on Twitch, people were like lighting it up, $60 patch. What is this? We didn't need a sequel, blah, blah, blah. They had nothing positive to say. And I feel like that's just kind of what comes with the territory. Sometimes chat is just excessively hostile towards anything new that's different. And I mean, I'll admit sometimes I'm a little bit guilty of that. And I was kind of swayed a little bit like, what is this Overwatch 2? Like, is it really worth it? Because they had PvE shown off, and PvE in the past on Overwatch 1 was kind of like lackluster. There wasn't really too much to it. So when they said they were making an entire game that had that as one of the focuses, I was a bit skeptical. But man, did they deliver. They showed so much information this time around. We got to see an in-depth look at the actual PvE elements of the game on top of some changes they're making to PvP, and I'm sold. I kind of fell out of love with Overwatch at one point. I played that for many hours, hundreds of hours, enjoyed my time, and then kind of just it lost its flair and I never went back. So I'm ready to dive back in whenever this one comes out. Now, one thing that was different with the Diablo reveal is they kind of just had two people on screen having a conversation and talking about what they enjoyed in the game and what they wanted you to get excited about. And Overwatch put together an entire documentary, like straight up from the gun, a full edited, like they had their development team in a Zoom call, like six of them, and then they went through what they were excited about, but then proceeded to cut in lots of gameplay, behind the scenes footage, which was really cool. I feel like you don't really get to see the actual development process of video games very often, especially before they come out. So that was really cool to see. And then they showed some nice cutscenes from the game as well. So they put together an entire documentary for this entire game, and it's got me pumped. I have no other words. Like they showed so much off that I have gone from completely off it to now fully on it. So first they dove into PvP changes. They're adding new maps. They showed some of those off, and they are making some key changes to roles in the game, which is interesting. But first off, they revealed two maps. First one being Rome. Now, Overwatch, their map design has always been excellent. They do a really good job of making maps based on real life, but then like putting an Overwatch spin on it, which is kind of this like new, shiny, futuristic technology looking world. But they made Rome, which is a very old, ancient civilization, but they kind of rebuilt it with that new futuristic look. So it's got that like cyberpunk, steampunk kind of look to it. And this was really cool. They showed some of the development process. One of their designers actually visited Rome recently, took a lot of pictures, and then they used that to fuel like drawings, designs, and then animated on top of that. So it was very cool to see that development process. But then they completely, in my opinion, overshadowed that one by revealing New York City. I'm a big city person, so this was really cool and unexpected to see. The entire time they were talking about it, I was just kind of geeking out because New York City, I mean, very big city, lots to see there, very big tourist attraction. Now they took and put their Overwatch spin on it. So you get to see like Grand Central Station, like revamped in Overwatch, Empire State Building, and as well as like other older architecture from these buildings. And Overwatch is really known for having tons of Easter eggs in their map. So if you like to go into a custom match and just like look around and explore, I'm sure there's going to be many little hidden things in this map. Now about these role changes, this isn't something that is taken lightly, especially by people who are very into the competitive nature of Overwatch. And they're making some big changes. And this game is supposed to be sort of a replacement for the first game, like it's a successor. starting off the bat, they're making changes to the tank class by trying to make them more like brawlers. They don't want them to just have to protect the other people. This isn't League where you basically have like one person doing all the damage in the very back of the map as an AD carry and just kind of like really squishy. That is to some extent what goes on, but they want the tanks to have more value because I mean, it's kind of boring when Reinhardt just sits there with the shield the entire game. So they've given him an additional fire strike charge. So now he can throw two of those projectiles. And I mean, some people might immediately just like throw up in their mouths, like, why would they do that? But they said a disclaimer that some of these might not ship. They're kind of just toying around and they're showing you inside their development process. They also said that they made it so where tanks, they have less knockback. DPS, they get a movement boost, so it's like easier to flank. And then healers, they even get passive healing abilities outside of their normal healing. So if they're on their own and they're low health, they can like heal over time. So I feel like some people are going to be a little bit skeptical of these changes, but I mean, like they said, they're not guaranteed to ship. They're just kind of messing around. And I mean, there's going to be a long beta for this, I would assume, the same way that Overwatch 1 had. So they're going to do a lot of balancing and messing around. So it'll be a long process for sure. So one thing that I always kind of complained about Overwatch is that it kind of got stale. If you played it for a long time, like the game started to feel lackluster. Like it's very shiny and in your face at first, but then you kind of take note of the stagnancy of things. Like people don't really seem to react to bullets that well. It's just kind of like you hear ding 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 ding, but like you don't really see anything visual. When they added their PvE elements, it was a lot of just shooting things till they're dead without any sort of like indication of like what kind of damage you're dealing. It just didn't feel very alive. Well, here they're really changing the game up. They're adding a bunch of new changes with the way that if you melee someone, they actually like knock back. If you shoot something, it's gonna start running out of ammo audibly. Like you can hear those changes, and we've seen this kind of things in Fortnite before. They even took the time to go record new gun sounds and then position them in different audio simulations. So if you're hearing your gunfire out in the open versus in a closed tunnel, like it's going to sound different. If you're going to be in a city area versus out in the countryside, it's going to sound different. It's honestly kind of wild. There's going to be more environmental effects going on, and I think that's really cool, making the world seem more alive. Now, having more of a focus on PvE this time around, they had to make this a forefront. They also added weather and time of day effects. So you can have, night cycles on certain maps, day cycles, sunset. You can have a sandstorm in Temple of Anubis. You can have a blizzard in another one of their new maps. Like they've really changed this up where you won't just feel like, okay, now I'm on this map, which it always looks like this. Like every single time I load into this map, it looks like this. There will be more things that happen, especially in the PvE, because some of this stuff can probably be distracting in PvP. So I don't imagine they would do that in a competitive match. But in these missions, you kind of need some sort of spice that, gets things going. And if you're just on Temple of Anubis and you've seen it every single time, it's not going to feel new and different. They also added new areas to previous maps. So, for example, King's Row has a new path that branches off from the payload in one of the PvE missions. So you can now see in a completely new area of King's Row. They showed a little bit of them adding to it, like in their programs, like designing it and all this stuff, which again, very neat to see that kind of thing. This will definitely allow for us to be able to like bring life into old things too, instead of just again seeing the same old maps on the same old game. There's new stuff too. So you might be saying to yourself, Taylor, this all sounds great, but like how much content are we talking about? Last time we only got a little bit of, PvE here and there, and like, is it going to be like that again? Let me tell you with confidence, they have big plans. They opened up this map. All of a sudden, you're just transported into this area to see what's going on in different parts of the world. Overwatch spans the entire world. Like they've made this clear often with their map design and different locations. There's going to be plenty to offer. Maybe not right at launch, but there's going to be enough to, get you started, but they want to keep supporting it, keep adding new missions, fresh missions over time. At one point, they said they wanted to get to like hundreds of missions. So I'd say that we're looking pretty good. As far as the activities they talked about, there's going to be, typical Overwatch stuff like pushing the payload or holding a point, but then they're going to add new things like retrieving different hidden canisters in the wild, or maybe like just surviving a wave of enemies. And they're gonna spice things up by keeping on adding new stuff. So it may be a little bit grindy at first, but I mean, a lot of games that have PvE content are grindy. I mean, people will farm the content till it's dead and then keep going and keep progressing, and whatever their reward system needs to be worth it. Okay, here's where I started to freak out a little bit more. Progression and talents. This game is now a full RPG. Straight up. They added a skill tree that's very reminiscent of like Borderlands. Now we're starting to get into the RPG side of things, and they said they even threw out the old system that they showed last year, where there was only like a couple of different things you could upgrade. It didn't really look too in depth. Now you straight up have like three separate skill trees with like multiple different avenues to go down. And the way they were describing going through it was like in Borderlands, where you see the bottom one that you want, like, oh, that skill looks really cool, and you start trying to train your way to get there and plan and build. Like, honestly, like this sounds like a completely different game now. And along with this, you can actually change the way that your character fundamentally works. They showed off Soldier 76's healing ability, actually pushing enemies away and traveling with him. So, I mean, if you can think about those sort of subtle changes, and those are like early in the skill tree, I can't imagine what sort of things are going to be towards the bottom. Maybe like ultimate changes or things like that. I cannot wait to come in and like just mess with Genji and see what kind of crazy stuff he can do. He was always my favorite. Now, last time around in Overwatch 1, some people didn't really care for their PvE sectors because they kind of were forgettable. Their enemies didn't feel too great. They were just kind of like lifeless robots that you shot until it was like, okay, the mission's over. So they showed a little bit of their redesigning process on the enemies. They've given different levels of enemies. There's like elite versions that are harder, that have different abilities. They added additional enemy types. There's more animations to them. They have flying enemies. They have ones that drop bombs on you, the ones that don't even try to attack you. They just go straight towards the objective to blow up on it. They have these elite enemies that one of them had like Medusa like snake hair. She pulls you in with the tractor beam and does these crazy sinister looking moves. And this is where I'm starting to say this the game looks like a real game. Like this is now a full campaign. Like we're no longer just like, okay, here's the PvE side to a competitive shooter game. Like this is starting to shape up to look like a Destiny, where they have their PvE and their PvP side of things. So you now just choose your avenue. Which one do you want to focus on? I'm very excited for that. And to my earlier point about them having like lifeless enemies that you kind of just shot until they were dead with no really indication of the kind of damage you were dealing or any sort of reaction, they now have animations with like, okay, now he's taking more damage, like he's on fire, or like the actual body parts look like they're taking damage and then they fall off, or like if you shoot different areas, different things happen. Like it's starting to shape up to be more realistic. One clever thing that I saw was how enemies actually react with each other. So if you shoot an enemy, it'll fall into its other enemies and knock them back. And I don't really notice this sort of thing in other games. I don't think it's like the most original idea, but like for instance, when I play Destiny and I'm shooting endless mobs of things, the only thing that they really interact with is when one explodes, it might explode some of the others. They don't really like fall and knock over their friends and stuff when things are going. So I don't know. Seems like a pretty cool idea. They then proceeded to show off some new hero looks, and I'll be honest, it's been a while since I've last played Overwatch, so the new hero looks, some of them I kind of was like, isn't that what they already looked like? But I know that longtime fans that might still be playing, they can notice the subtle differences. They did say they didn't want to completely change the heroes. That's what the skins are for, because they have skins that completely change up the look. But they just wanted to kind of update the look just with little subtle changes. Maybe like McCree has a longer beard now and he has like an updated cape. But like as they were revealing them to me, they revealed Pharah, Reaper, and Widowmaker as well. I kind of was like, oh, that's kind of what I always remember them looking like. So very subtle changes, but at least we're not seeing the exact same thing moving on to the next game. They then jumped into story development, and this is where Blizzard puts on that Pixar hat. They said that they're going to start incorporating their animated short style into the game. These are what the cutscenes are going to be now. I don't remember how many times I've been watching these shorts and like, all right, this needs to be incorporated into the actual game somehow. And here it is. and boy, they did not disappoint. I saw these first person cutscenes where, like it's like more reminiscent of Call of Duty, where Zarya this time she's in a subway and there's like an Omnic banging on the door, and I'm like, okay, now this is a little bit more lifelike. And then they showed their actual like fully animated, non-controllable cutscenes, and wow, they kind of blew me away with this. They showed some of the storyboarding they did. You got to see like the actual drawings, the animations. They showed their process of going from drawing to like a 3D mock-up to then actual animating, and then like a full reiteration of that animation to a final product. And it was some of the coolest things I got to see. And again, this like documentary style reveal of a video game, or at least like update on the development process. I wish that more companies would do this, but I guess this is kind of like an invasive process where, you know, if the game isn't really in a great state, Cyberpunk, they don't really want to show off what's going on, especially the development process. Cyberpunk really kind of I don't know, they hit a lot. So I'm hoping that Blizzard isn't doing the same thing, but given some of the things they shown, like it showed them at their most vulnerable, I feel like. We got to see actual early stages of the product. So I believe that if they put this through a rigorous beta the same way they did for Overwatch 1, that we will get a nice final product once the game actually comes out. In all honesty, I'm kind of surprised that everybody doubted, including myself, Blizzard's talent for this sort of thing, because they've made Diablo games, they've made World of Warcraft stories that people like, they've made so many different things. They have good writers. So for us to just be kind of immediately off of a PvE focused Overwatch, I guess we kind of just like forgot that they can make a good story. So I don't know. I feel like we're gonna have a good time here, but here's the hoping that they don't pull a CD Project Red, hide all of the bad stuff. But hopefully, with a beta, we'll get to see some good progress being made, flesh out all the negatives and the unbalanced nature that games always start in, and we'll get a good final product. Not in 2021. They did say that it's not coming out then. So hopefully 2022. Maybe we'll get Blizzard's Diablo and this, and we'll have a good time. So thanks for tuning in to this special episode of Dark Mode. Keegan was supposed to be here to witness my new beanie that looks almost just like his, so he'll have to just see this when it goes live online. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications, and we'll catch you in the next one.